Hello and welcome to episode 197 of Sutton Impact Style. This is Jason.
And I'm Bill. And I don't know if I've ever done anything 197 times.
It's a lot of times.
It's been a lot of fun.
It has.
Jay, I want to start off talking about, I actually went to my first sporting event in 11 months, I guess it is. And I went to the Toronto Raptors opener against the Pelicans in Tampa.
Okay.
And it was just probably safer than going to the grocery store. I mean, they had 3,800 people that you're limited to. And you either in groups of 2 or 4. You had a pod, and they had every seat that wasn't part of the pod had these special strips, so you couldn't. If somebody wanted to come and join your pod, they couldn't do it because you couldn't. The seats just wouldn't do it. They spent, I think Steve Griggs told me, $40,000 on these ties just to tie the seats down.
Oh wow!
And then they have a new ventilation system. And then they have these ultraviolet virus-killing lights. And we actually sat in the Lightning Suite, which accommodates 50 people.
Right.
But it was limited to 10 people.
Wow.
So it was very, very, very safe. You know, you wore your mask unless you were eating or drinking. But one thing did surprise me, though. In the Lightning Suite, there was a buffet. And I knew there was only 10 people, but I still thought that was a little surprising.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, it does make sense. And I assume it wasn't like, was there a person serving it behind like the plated glass or anything, or was it just?
No.
Okay.
No. It was just like food was laid out, and you were to distance yourself, and it was only 10 people in a suite. It wasn't crowded. I mean, when you walked through the line, you basically went for yourself.
Right.
But and then I think you had to pour your own wine.
Okay.
And serve your own beverages. So, but it was, for my first time, I felt safe. I enjoyed myself. I watched the Pelicans win. And I was kind of rooting for the Pelicans because I kind of have a warm spot in my heart for the Pelicans. And I watched Brandon Ingram go off. And, he's a great shooter. But it was a fun game to watch.
Were they pumping in?
Back to another sporting event.
Were they pumping in crowd noise?
Yeah, but so I was kind of used to it from all the NBA broadcasts we watched last year.
Okay.
So it becomes part of what you expect. But I will say, usually when you go to an NBA game and you're there in person, it's constant noise.
Yeah.
It wasn't constant noise.
Okay.
I mean, you could have a conversation. It was fine, but it was, I had a little trepidation about going, but once I got there and saw what they had done to make it safe, I was fine. And I just hope as the vaccine comes along, we do other things. Like I'm hopeful there's going to be some spring training baseball, but we'll have to see if there's going to be fans for spring training baseball or not. Or
Yeah.
even spring training baseball starting in March might not start till April now. If they delay the season back.
And obviously it's more expensive now, but I mean, I think, in terms of the film industry, we're keeping the filters, we're going to keep the lights and all that stuff moving forward. So,
Yeah, and I saw the layout for the players, and I mean, there's never going to be any, or I won't say never, there's not likely to be any courtside seats on the players' side.
right.
That's not likely to happen. And even right now, there's no courtside seating at all because they keep a good barrier between the fans and the players.
And moving forward, we already knew this from studies in Asia and Japan where they wear masks when people feel sick. But the flu is down this year in the country because people are wearing masks. And, moving forward, once this virus is gone and everybody, don't forget that, you can still transmit colds and coughs and the flu this way. So if you don't feel good, be like the Japanese and be nice to people and just wear the mask, on the days you don't feel well.
I think we'll probably continue to evolve and probably have better masks too.
Yeah. Well, I think I found, I think we have probably like 40 masks now in my house.
Yeah. I mean, I went to my doctor's office for a checkup last week, and that gator mask,
Yeah.
that one was not approved to wear in the doctor's office.
Yeah, those aren't approved on movie sets either.
Yeah. So, I mean, they came out with a lot of those, and, you know, still a lot of the football coaches still have those.
They do.
And I was surprised that it was, like, not allowed. If you had that, you had to go get another mask or take one of the masks they had there for you.
Yeah.
And then watching some bowl games this week, you know, I'm still surprised that you had the bowl games, but I know that ESPN has a lot of investment and a lot of sponsors, but I still saw that ESPN's going to lose a significant amount of money because all the bowls were canceled.
True.
But those were kind of strange to watch a bowl game and see a team that was 4-4 and another team that was 4-5 in a bowl game.
Yes.
Playing just, you know, in a vacuum. So, but, you know, I'll watch. So I guess that's the goal, is to get home viewers to watch.
Right. And you're seeing, I mean, I think this trend was going even before the virus, but if you're not in the 4 teams that are playing for everything, you get a lot of draft eligible players that just opt out. Because again, it doesn't make a lot of sense to play in the Alamo whatever bowl for no real stakes if you have the NBA draft on the horizon. Not that you can't get hurt training, but, you know.
Yeah. But a lot of those bowls are, you know, they're sponsored for tourism.
Right.
And so it was kind of interesting seeing all these tourism ads when you really can't travel. So, I mean, it was like, hey, once this is over, don't forget about us and come here and visit.
It's true. I mean, I think, you know, we rented a cabin in the mountains of Gatlinburg, and even though we were just the 2 of us socially distancing in a cabin, it was nice to get away from our house that we've been in for, you know, the better part of a year now.
I mean, we need alternatives. We need variety.
And there are things like that. Like I said, we rented it in the hopes that the virus would be gone. We rented it back in the summer, but it was keyless entry. We got a code. They had everything, like toilets were sealed and everything. So there was, you know, I think there's ways you can do things and feel safe. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, you know, we can all manage our own pod. It's how willing are you to intersect with other people that aren't part of your bubble or your pod. And that's still where the danger is.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we get sloppy, then things happen.
Very true. Well, speaking of, as we're on the college football thing, how do we feel about the 4 that made it?
I'll start by saying I continue to think it's a bad system, that it favors the rich continue to get rich because the people that are making the decision are representative of only the Power 5. And it's just not right.
Right.
I kind of got a kick out of Dabo. I mean, I listened to Dabo explain why he ranked Ohio State 11th. And he said, it's not anything against their team. He said, I had a standard in my mind of 9 games. And if you didn't play 9 games, you weren't worthy of being ranked. And Dabo's the one that mentioned Cincinnati and Texas A&M and these other teams. He thought they were more worthy than Ohio State, not necessarily because they were better teams, but they had undergone, you know, and fought through and played 9 games, which he thought was a better representative of work. So I respect him for what he said. I respect him for what he did. It'll be interesting to see how that game comes out. I really look forward to seeing that, to see if that's billboard or bulletin board material for Ohio State, or if Clemson is just going to kick their ass, which I think is going to happen.
It does make the game, I mean, again, depending on which sports people you listen to, like Shannon Sharp was talking about this the other day in regards to Juju Smith's dancing, where he basically said, you know, he's like you're going out there to try to win games. He's like, you're an NFL football player. He's like, if somebody dancing on a logo or somebody says something in the paper is what it takes to get you motivated, he's like, you're not going to be in the NFL for more than about 5 minutes. So, you know, it's probably the same with these kids too. Like it's.
But I guess I'm going to say Clemson will win their matchup. Alabama will win their matchup. And then to me, it's pick 'em. I don't know. I mean, those are the 2 best teams in the country, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a great game.
Well, that's a chance for Mac Jones to jump way up in the quarterback rankings, I think.
Yeah, and a chance for Justin Fields to jump lower.
Yeah, although I was listening to Trent Dilfer, speaking of, we'll stay with college before we transition to the pros, just like these quarterbacks are doing. But he was saying, you know, he's like that while Trevor Lawrence is clearly the number one prospect, like that's not up for debate, that the difference between him and Justin Fields is much smaller than people think. And that, that they were saying that Trevor Lawrence has a very long stride. He's a very long player. And that he does a lot of things great, but he's got some some flaws in his game as well. So that,
And when I heard on the radio this morning, I was listening to ESPN radio, and they were saying, is there an issue with Ohio State quarterbacks? They looked at Haskins, they looked at a number of other quarterbacks that came out of Ohio State. Is it a system where they're not as successful, or is it the individual, or whatever it is? Because there's a lot of eyes being raised now, and they were saying that they thought Fields this is going to be a very big determining game for him, because they haven't played many games and they really haven't played anybody very good, and now they're going to be competing. So what does he do on the big stage? And he's been prepping for this game now for a couple of weeks, so we'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
It's interesting.
Well, I think, you look at the last two Ohio State quarterbacks that went drafted. Obviously, Haskins and his, strip club this year and not just looking very good. But there was the other guy, too, that was another, 1-year wonder, where Justin Fields has been around a little bit longer. He's been in the system. We've known him. We've seen him play, for a couple years now. So I think he looks different. And again, just look at Pat Mahomes. He came from a quote-unquote system that produced guys that put up, ridiculous numbers. And Pat Mahomes is probably the best quarterback I've ever watched play football. So, I think it comes down to the individual guy. The system is going to help put a spotlight on you. And I think it can raise some people up. But I think if you've got what it takes, you're going to make it regardless of what system you've come from.
So how are you feeling about the 4 teams?
This year is just so crazy. I think they're giving people 4 teams people are excited to watch. Anyone that's listened to 190-something episodes of this podcast know that I am always pulling for the underdogs. The UFC, the UCFs, the Cincinnatis, those are the teams I want to see, for their 1 year to get their chance. But I don't know about this. This year's just, I think Ohio State was supposed to be one of the best teams. And in their very limited schedule, they took care of business as best they could, except the Northwestern game was a little bit shaky. I guess the only one you could argue against would be, I didn't feel like Notre Dame didn't look that great against Clemson in that rematch. So.
No, that's what the debate was. And again, Dabo and some other people said it's the body of work. They played 11 games.
Yeah.
Are you going to base everything on that last game, or are you going to forget about the other 10 games? To go through a season and play 11 games, that's your body of work. Yeah.
So, I think it's hard. I think you look at the system and you're like, it's a flawed system that needs to change. But based on this year, I'm like, I don't really know who I would put in instead of them.
No, I don't either. Although I would have loved to see Cincinnati get in.
I would too. But, like we said before, they have such a mountain to climb to get back into it that it's crazy,
Well, let's go NFL now.
Playoffs are pretty, except for the NFC East, the craziest division in football.
NFC East, if Washington wins despite losing yesterday, they're in.
Yeah.
And if Washington loses and Dallas wins, Dallas is in.
Right.
And if Washington loses and Dallas loses, then I guess the Giants are in.
I think so.
And then the wild card situation in the AFC is totally up in the air.
Yeah. Well, the Titans have not yet clinched the playoff berth, despite the fact you think they are the division. So they're probably in.
Yeah, and they did not look good last night. They did not look good at all.
No.
And watching Green Bay play in the snow.
Yeah.
Considering that to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to go through Green Bay. You're going to have to win in Green Bay. That's a tough road to hoe. And Aaron Rodgers looks unbelievable right now.
Devontae Adams is crushing it. The running game looks good.
They look good.
They look very, very good. And I know I was a doubter on them all season long, but I guess it's time. I can't, Aaron Rodgers is, arguably the MVP. I think he's got more touchdowns and a higher passer rating. He's got less yards than Mahomes, but, less wins technically. But I feel like he may have been the more consistent player.
Well, if it comes down to New Orleans and Green Bay, that's going to be a really good game.
Yeah.
But it's tough for a dome team to play in Green Bay in January.
Especially if you got old man Breeze with his ribs still clearly bothering him. And I don't think you're going to get another 6 touchdowns out of Alvin Kamara in one game. So.
No, and then you got Seattle's another dome team. And then whoever the other team is, if it's the Cardinals.
Yeah.
They're a dome team.
Basically, yeah. I mean, the Packers look like the clear best team in the NFC to me. And no disrespect to the people of New Orleans and the Saints.
They have emerged as the best team
in
the NFC. I picked them to win their division in the beginning of the year just because of Aaron Rodgers, and I thought he'd be angry all year about the fact he drafted a quarterback. But that team has played very, very well.
Well, Devontae Adams might be the best receiver in football this year. I mean, I know Tyreek Hill's got on that one. There's some other guys, but he's been just unstoppable.
The Chiefs have had a couple games now where they look very mortal. Although if it's a close game and they're down less than 7 points and they have the ball with less than 2 minutes, I think Patrick Mahomes is gonna beat you.
Yeah, there's so much talent on offense that it's hard to imagine that you can cover all those guys. And then between Hardman and obviously Tyreek Hill, we already mentioned. They have so many just breakaway, get them the ball in a little bit of space, and they're gone guys that you just feel like they're, every play is, it's.
Yeah.
But as we've said, they've looked.
They look really good. Buffalo looks really good.
Buffalo looks.
I don't know what we have. If we have the second half Steelers team, but there's still so many injuries. I think Spillane will come back. He's eligible to be activated. He hasn't played in 6 weeks.
But Vince Williams looked really good for the Steelers. Avery Williamson
played a good game yesterday.
Avery Williams looked great yesterday.
Mike Hilton looked unbelievable as usual.
Alex Highsmith is looking really good right now. He was supposed to be
It's hard to say. If the offense could play and keep them off the field as much as they've had to be on the field the last 3 weeks, it'll make a difference. But the offense has to play like they played yesterday in the second half.
Well, when they don't drop as many passes,
which opens up other things.
Yeah, it's like when you can throw the ball downfield and catch the ball, it does a lot for your offense.
It does. It does.
And
the Browns were very disappointed, even with the 4 receivers out. I mean, everybody's had COVID issues this year. Everybody's had injury issues. But they just went after Baker Mayfield with a vengeance. I mean, with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, you would have thought they'd have a great running game playing the Jets. And they didn't do anything.
I think that team got caught with the I think that was really hurt. I think you should stop 4 wide receivers to COVID. I think it changed your game plan, and I don't think Kevin Stefanski did a good job adjusting. I thought Kareem Hunt should have been the slot receiver for a lot of that game, that he and Chubb should have been on the field together. Like, I know it's been nice all year to be able to bring in, Kareem Hunt in relief of Nick Chubb is fresh, but I would have both those guys out there on the field every play. And, he had a lot of drop passes. Like, it wasn't a great game, but I don't know what to say. I don't hold that game against them, I would say. Plus, the Jets are red hot. They've won 2 in a row, so.
They're on fire. Break up the Jets.
You might have to,
All right, so let me ask you a question. Now, since we're talking a little bit about the draft, talking about college players. I mean, it's obvious Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jaguar.
Yes.
So you're the Jets, and you're sitting at number 2 because the Bengals just won again, too.
Yeah.
So you're the Jets, you're sitting at 2. Do you take a quarterback, or do you think that Sam Darnold's your guy? He just doesn't have any talent around him, and he's had a couple different coaches, a couple different coordinators. Are you gonna do like the Browns did and find the right coach for the team and develop this guy, and then take the number 2 pick and get him maybe the receiver out of Alabama or somebody can really help the offense?
I think I'm cashing out on Sam Darnold. I still think, I know he's only 23 and I think he's got a future. I think the problem is you look at what a team can do with a good rookie quarterback on a rookie deal for 5 years. I think that's invaluable to your salary cap. And especially with the cap potentially going down due to COVID and some other things, or at least not rising. I think if Justin Fields is considered, like a 90-something overall prospect, which most people rate him as, I'm pulling the trigger and I'm taking it. Maybe I'm trying to like sign and trade Sam Darnold in some sort of way, or tag him and trade him. And it just seems like it's too. If you can have a rookie quarterback for 5 years on that contract, I think you can grow with that guy, and you're in so much better situation cap wise. Like I don't know what Sam Darnold costs for another year.
Okay, we're split on this because I can go the other way.
I mean, selfishly, I want to see Sam Darnold end up on the Steelers.
I just don't think he's ever had enough talent around to compete.
No, he's had terrible coaching, lots of offensive coordinators. But he
and not great talent.
No, but as we've learned with my least favorite Steeler, Mason Rudolph, and some other players, like when you read their draft profile coming out, a lot of the knocks on Sam Darnold were things that Sam Darnold still does. And, with the turn that, high fumble rate, throws the ball into like triple and double coverage when guys aren't open, takes a lot of risks, and turns the ball over a lot. Like those are all things he still does 4 years later in the NFL. So, you obviously hope better coaching would help with that. But I think some of those things that you do are just what you do. And I'm just not sure that, I feel like the Jets are far enough away that, I'd rather have the rookie and roll from there. Unless somebody loves Justin Fields and offers me, the granddaddy of them all trade package, then I think you got to consider that too, depending on how far down you have to move. Especially if
you're talking a little bit about wagering.
Okay. Well,
so you saw that you were telling me about Barkley's spot on the broadcast where he does a little wagering thing.
Barkley now has a deal with FanDuel, who is obviously, if you follow sports gambling, FanDuel is the one you probably heard advertisements for on other sports podcasts and TV shows where, they'll match your first $10 on your first $10 bet and all those sorts of things. And now Barkley on TNT's show has a FanDuel sponsored segment where he's giving out winners and losers. So gambling it's creeping more and more, as we talked about, you talked about Jimmy the Greek from a time ago who gave out real things. And then we had Chris Berman who kind of like danced around,
Yeah, Pete Axelm. There's been a number of people that have always talked about point spreads or this team's going to win by a lot. This could be a very close game. It's always been there. But now that FanDuel and this other sport bet and all these other companies, now that they are investing as sponsors at the team level and at the league level, then they're getting more of a platform for their product. And since they've accepted them as sponsors, that's an endorsement. It's a big endorsement. So now, it's going to be more and more and more mainstream. And, we'll have to deal with it. Is it going to cause a gambling problem? Is there going to be an influx of gambling addictions? I don't know. Probably it will increase. You'd be crazy to think it wouldn't increase.
Right.
Just like if you legalize marijuana and if it does lead to other drugs, will there be more people with an addiction problem? The problem is probably, yeah. And people can be addicted to marijuana. So, just because it's legal, there's going to be some people can handle it and some people can't, just like anything else. Wine and beer have been illegal since the 20s and 30s. And so, where are you? Certain people have a predilection of being addicted and other people don't. And so it's just another thing. So I think we're going to have to be smart, though, because, your viewership of the NFL, there's 9, 10, 11-year-old kids watching this. And if they think it's fun to go place a bet, and you're going to be able to place a bet at the venue. You're going to be able to walk up to a betting window. And Monumental Sports will already have it for the Wizards this year. You can walk up to a betting window and place a bet. So if you were 8 years old and I was taking you to a Wizards game, and we were talking about how much we like Russell Westbrook, and we could walk up and say, hey, do you want to bet that Russell Westbrook gets a triple-double? And we could bet on that.
Yeah.
We probably would have done it, right?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, it would have been. It adds to your enjoyment because you have another reason now to watch the game. If you bet $5 and you could win 10, it just gives you that much of another connection. So, continue to watch this. It's going to continue to keep going and going and going. And
I think the other fear you have is that, in a downturned economy that's been getting worse since, you could argue since the late 70s, early 80s with Reagan, where and it's an instant chance to, if they can, I got a good feeling this is going to turn things around for my family this month. Like, you can see that kind of thing happening too, which is obviously the danger of,
Hey, look at the lines for the lottery tickets when the big jackpot's there.
Oh, I know.
And some people, spend a couple $100.
Yeah.
They probably could have on other things, but they're taking a shot that this is going to be the one thing that happens for them and turns it around. So, sport is knee deep in this, and it's not going to change. It's only going to get bigger and bigger.
And obviously, with it infiltrating the pregame shows, and there's places you can go to just watch the gambling thing. Do you ever see, like, when we have our live 3-man booths, we're watching, let's say we're watching Saints Buccaneers. Do you ever think that we'll have the play-by-play guy, the color guy, and then we'll either have like a Bene Salvatore we go to, or a guy in the booth that's talking about, like, at this rate, the best thing to do would be to, bet the Bucks in the second half. Like, do you think that we go that far, or do you think that would turn off viewers that aren't into gambling?
It could easily go that far. We're influenced if it's in your face and if it's easy to get to, if it's accessible, yeah, anything can happen.
I mean, that's where the money would be. Like, if you're home watching and you have, NBC's expert, whoever from Vegas.
And you're sitting there with your cell phone and it says, here's my guaranteed winner for the day. And all you got to do is log on to that site and use Apple Pay and bet on it? Sure.
And again, if it's a boring game and I've got a guy in the booth talking about, gambling odds, it might make it, again, like you said, even if it's, there's the dangerous kind, but even if it's okay, $5, I don't think the Chiefs are going to get the 50 yards rushing in the game. They only have 22 at the half, and they're down by,
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
And that's what's gonna happen. There's gonna be those bets in the beginning of the game, and then there's gonna be second half bets. There's one right now that I forget. It's FanDuel or one of them that will introduce it and say it'll be during the game, and they'll say, here's the payoff if so-and-so scores a 20-yard or longer touchdown in the fourth quarter. And that's a bet, and they advertise that one.
Yeah. And it's
crazy times.
It is crazy times. The other thing I was thinking about is when you think about the youths of the world, and they talk about how they consume sports, and like a lot of people are consuming like the NBA, especially through social media and video games, bizarrely more so than they actually watching their games. Mm-hmm. And this got me thinking, and I sent you the text when I sort of framed it in this way, like, you look at TikTok, and obviously that was a problem for Juju Smith-Schuster, but NBA athletes are doing it constantly. And if you wanted to get eyes on the game, if I was going to, like I said, TikTok fan of the quarter, and it's the Magic game, and if you're the Magic TikTok fan, and they're showing your TikTok on TNT, it's your 10 seconds of fame, would more people tune in, or would that be a turnoff for the people that love TikTok, where they feel like they've blown out and gone too mainstream?
More people tune in, and more people go to TikTok, and there'll be people on TikTok that don't care about football game, but see a chance to get their video shown.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then it's like, Bill Sutton is our TikTok first quarter winner, and here's Bill Sutton's TikTok, and then people are like, oh, that dude's funny, I'm gonna go follow him, and then you get 1,000 more followers. Like, it seems like that's a no-brainer. That I'm not sure why that's not happening already. So.
Well, it's going to be a really interesting week. We got a lot of stuff before our next show. We'll have our NFL, all of our playoff teams will be identified before our next show. So I think we should make our predictions.
Okay.
Next week, not now.
Yeah.
Because there's just two.
It's two.
The AFC wild card, there's like, I think there's 4 teams in contention and 4 teams in contention for 3 spots.
Is there, when you're looking at the most likely last team in, whether it's the Ravens, the Browns, the Colts, or the Dolphins, who would you be most afraid of right now? Of those 4?
What are we most afraid of?
Yeah.
The Ravens.
The Ravens, huh? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of the Colts.
No.
I'm not afraid of the Browns. And I'm not afraid of the Dolphins. Although, that Fitzmagic pass was one of the best plays I've ever seen.
Whoa.
You saw the replay, right?
Of course.
That when he launched that, all he had when he threw that was the memory of where that player was, because he sure didn't see him when he let it go.
No.
His head was pointed north, straight up in the air. That was an unbelievable throw. But it's why he's Fitzmagic.
He's a very interesting, because you look at his entire career, and he has these highs, or he has these games where he goes in and he looks like the greatest quarterback to ever play football. And then he'll have weeks where he looks like he barely belongs on an NFL field. And he's so likable, and he's got the beard and the goofy clothes, and he seems like he's just the most beloved player. So it's a tough situation. I don't know what you do if you're the Dolphins.
He wins more than he loses, and he wins when he shouldn't, and he loses when he shouldn't, and that's why there's a lot to him. I mean, Fitzmagic, Fitztragic, it's a real thing.
Yeah,
and it's like he's kind of like Nick Foles is very similar.
Very similar.
When you start to believe in him, and then all of a sudden you can't.
Well, that's why I feel like Dolphins fans at this moment would tell, like, he did a poll, 98, 99% of want Fitzmagic starting the season for the rest of the year. And I think they're full-on Fitzmagic. I don't think they've had enough Fitztragic, or they have too short a memory of the last time he was Fitztragic. Because,
I think they started in the playoffs at the big playoffs. I did. I think that, that they don't see Tua, as a quarterback, a playoff quarterback right now.
So then you got to start him this week then too, right?
I think so. I mean, he brought him back in that game. The game changed immediately when he went in the game. You got to roll the dice and go with it.
Well, yeah, he threw for 180. Tua threw for I think it was 10 or 14 for 77 yards. And Fitzpatrick.
He's not damaging Tua because he knows Fitzmagic's not going to be the guy next year.
Right.
He knows it's his team. So let him learn.
And I have heard some.
If I got to bet on one of those teams to advance to the conference championship game, I'm picking the Ravens.
Okay.
Even though Lamar has his weaknesses, and if he doesn't hit a team that can keep him in the box,
yeah,
and make him throw, they can win. They have a good defense. They have good skilled players. A good running game. They're tough. They're tough out.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in the Browns.
And
the Colts, either the Colts or the Titans are going to be in only because one of them's going to win the division.
Yeah.
But they're both flawed.
I think the Titans are scarier than the Colts. Because Derrick Henry can single-handedly win you a game.
Although the Packers ate his lunch last night.
They did. It also seems like Tennessee, despite, like I said, I got a little bit of a white Christmas over my cabin in the woods in Tennessee. Tennessee did not look like they were ready for a snow game.
Not at all.
That was not their jam. They were like, no, we do not like snow.
And your odds of getting a snow game if you're going to be playing in Pittsburgh or Buffalo is pretty high. Or Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at all the teams we're talking about. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Kansas City, Cleveland, Baltimore. Okay, those are all cold weather teams. You got Miami, and you got the Colts who play in the Dome, and you've got Nashville, which is probably, the most moderate of the other cities. But, I mean, somebody's going to play in a bad weather game.
And I know this is one of those stats that I'm not sure how much we should weigh it, but Seattle is 7-1 at home this year. Green Bay is 7-1. Kansas City is 7-1. Pittsburgh has only lost one game at home. Buffalo has lost one game at home. So even though there's no fans, it does seem like home field for the good team still matters.
You're not traveling. You're not worrying about catching COVID on an airplane.
Yeah.
You're sleeping in your own bed. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I say, in the beginning of the year when I picked Green Bay, I picked New Orleans to be the team. But I was always assuming we were going to have fans back. And New Orleans with fans is a huge advantage.
It is the loudest building I've ever been in during a sporting event.
Okay. So, now Green Bay without fans with bad weather that's my home field. And then Kansas City does have fans, and they've got bad weather. And I could see a Green Bay Kansas City Super Bowl.
Yeah. If that's the case, they should just hold off the MVP, being this is the crazy year. And then whoever wins Super Bowl, whichever quarterback, he also gets the MVP. Just
Sure.
give it both.
Well, everybody, we gave you a lot of stuff to think about. Did you give a food moment, Jay?
I guess I can give at it. I mean, like I said, we mainly did takeout, and I never want to judge somebody solely on their takeout, even if we just walked back to our car and ate it in the car. But Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge are not food cities, I would say.
No.
There was the Friar Donut place that was pretty good. We got some takeout donuts from that guy.
Outstanding.
Those were very good donuts, but they weren't. They were good donuts. They weren't road trip out of your way donuts. I do have.
My food moment was right in my house. And your mom made lasagna, dark chocolate creme brulee, and homemade cinnamon rolls, and knocked them all out of the park in 1 week.
It's a pretty strong week.
It's a strong week, just for sure.
I did have an entertainment moment. We, once again, just because we're a big scary movie household, we got another month of Shudder added to Amazon. I'm not sure if we'll keep it for another month after this month. We might just pay our $5, but there were a couple things on there I wanted to watch. And if you're a writer or very into very meta sort of films, there's a movie called Scare Me. The whole thing has 4 actors in it. Takes place in a cabin. Almost no special effects. So right off the bat, there's basically Aya Cash, who people may know from, I forget what she was just Stormfront on Amazon's The Boys, and she plays a successful writer who meets a successful horror writer, and she meets this guy along the way who's up there trying to write his story. And there's a lot of social commentary about male versus female and things along those lines, but they just are telling each other scary stories. And at some point, Chris Redd from Saturday Night Live comes in as the pizza guy, and he participates in one, which is pretty funny. It's like a nice moment of levity. But it's just them telling stories back and forth to each other. And then there's a lot of, under the surface stuff that's playing around. But for a very minimalistic, almost like watching a play on screen was really good. And it's called Scare Me.
Okay.
Which you can also rent.
Godless, which is 7 episodes on Netflix.
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And the other thing I'm watching is Your Honor on Showtime. And it is really good. It's a very good story with a lot of complexity.
Okay.
And even when there's so many layers to it, so many interactions, it's really well done. Bryan Cranston's in it, and he's the judge, and it's a really, really interesting show. So definitely, I don't want to talk about it. It's just so good. Just jump into it. The first episode is the worst episode of all the episodes because you think it's this real predictable story that you've seen before. And by halfway through episode 2, you realize it's not the case.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. It's got a lot of complexities. And it just seems like they get more and more complicated each episode. And they just weave you in. And, it's just a great story. It's one of those stories that you don't know where it's going to go, but you're so enmeshed in the story you don't care because it's a good ride.
Okay. Very nice.
Awesome. Well, everybody, we're going to wish you a Happy New Year. I guess we'll be talking to you in 2021.
Yes.
Is our next show. Continue to wear your mask. Continue to stay safe. Continue to be smart. Don't take chances.
No. All right. Till next week.